No, Stefan, there's a tiredness in you and hunger. Won't you eat one of the eggs, please? I'll scramble the other two for the children to divide amongst themselves. No, I don't want anything more. I'll go now and meet the other men. We're going to try a place out on Western Avenue. He looked at me. I had a feeling that he wanted to say, "Forgive me," to me as he had to Mom, but for the life of me I couldn't have accepted an apology at that moment. I turned away from him abruptly. He had lashed out at me too many times, too unreasonably. I didn't feel the love for him that Mom did. When he was gone, I turned to her. "Don't fix any breakfast for me, Mom. It would choke me." She didn't answer. She just walked to the window and stared outside. I went up to my room, finished some homework, and got ready for school. When I came down, she had a sandwich of bread and oleomargarine for me. "Buy a cup of hot cocoa and have this for lunch, Josh. You can't play very well for Miss Crown if you're starved." She turned away quickly after she had spoken and hurried out of the kitchen as if she feared I might mention what had happened earlier. I stood at the kitchen table looking at the sandwich she had made for me. I wanted to ask her if she had any money for a cup of hot cocoa after a morning of ironing, but I heard the door of her room close sharply, and I knew the meaning of that sound. I had heard it often at times when I was younger, and she was fed up with my childish demands for attention. It meant, "Keep your distance. I am not available for further conversation." I didn't think she was angry with me this time, but I had an idea she didn't want to hear me say anything against Dad. Slowly I put the sandwich into the pocket of my jacket and started out for school. Penn High School had become a refugee for me. I was a good student, and that helped to make school attractive. I wasn't one of the popular set, but that didn't bother me, because when classes were over, the piano up in Miss Crown's music room was mine, and Howie was with me. I played better than most kids of my age, I guess. That was partly because I loved music better than anything on earth. I played by the hour, improvising upon the snatches of melody that ran through my mind, fumbling sometimes, faking at others, but finally finding something that sounded beautiful and right to me. When that happened, I rearranged and polished and worked at it until the notes went slipping under my fingers like water. Howie shared my love of music, and he was one of those rare musicians. He seemed to have been born with an instinct for understanding music, for hearing it precisely and then reproducing it with a little something extra, all his own. Without being able to read a note, he could coax music out of a piano, a guitar, a mouth organ, a pocket comb. His favorite instrument, though, was the banjo. He had an old one which he had once told me he had stolen, and that was very likely true. However he came by it, that banjo meant more to Howie than anything on earth. He knew how to make those strings sing, and he wouldn't and we hadn't practiced together very long until we were making music that sent splinters of delight all through me. With music like that, I could forget the anxieties at home. I could forget Dad's moods and the cheerless faces everywhere on Chicago's grim west side. Day after day, Howie and I closed the door of the music room and shut out the trouble of times. Howie was a boy of many sorrows, but he was one that sorrow couldn't quite pin down. He was only a few months younger than I was, but not much taller than Joey. He was a thin-faced, sallow boy with great dark eyes that could look mournful one minute and full of laughter the next, as if they mocked mournfulness and refused to accept it. I guess he had never known his father. He'd had a line of stepfathers, none of whom cared much about him. His mother was drunk when she could find money to buy whiskey. When she wasn't drunk, she was mean. Howie didn't talk about her much. He liked to talk of things that made for laughter, and the most striking feature about him was his mouth, a mouth that seemed always eager to laugh. Maybe I noticed that especially because my own mouth was characteristically unsmiling, even a little sullen. He was a wonderful guy, that Howie, the only real friend I had in high school. That afternoon we were practicing something I had composed. It was a fluid, changing tone story, a theme that I improvised upon according to my mood, an outpouring of feelings that were inside me and changed with the quality of sunlight, or the lack of it, with the dreams that sometimes seemed to be possible, with the despair that was a part of the times. It was something Howie and I had worked on for months, and lately, when we played it, Miss Crown's face glowed. We didn't have to ask her if we were good. We knew we were, when she asked us to play for the school assembly.